He said it was for a car. That's the first lie. Second one? That he had a job lined up. Said he needed to show a stable cosigner so he could lock in the offer. I should have asked more questions. Should have paused. But when your little brother calls you crying from a bus stop, saying he's trying to turn things around, your brain doesn't lead, your heart does. So I signed. Not even a full loan. Just a $12,000 personal note through a credit union I've used for years. They asked me 3 times if I was sure. Said things like, "You'll be equally responsible, and this affects your credit too." I nodded, signed, shook the banker's hand. 2 weeks later, the payment stopped. 3 weeks in, my phone started ringing. And 5 weeks in, I got a postcard. From Vegas. It was supposed to be a joke. Some tacky, glitter-stamped thing that said, "What happens here gets posted online." But what caught my eye wasn't the slogan. It was the handwriting, not my brother's. It was hers. Rebecca. My ex-girlfriend. The one who ghosted me 18 months ago, after 4 years together. No big fight. No cheating. Just a slow fade and a text that read, "I don't think we want the same life." I hadn't heard from her since. Until now. Her handwriting hadn't changed. The way she loops her YS, the little heart over her I in her name, it was like a punch to the chest. The card wasn't addressed to me. It was sent to my brother. But it landed at my place because he still uses my address for official stuff. There was no message. Just a photo. A blurry Polaroid of them standing in front of the Bellagio fountains. He was grinning. She was in a red dress I'd bought her. The same one she wore the night we said, "I love you," for the first time. My name's Thomas. I'm 36. And this is the story of how my brother used my credit and my past to pay for a lie I didn't see coming. If you'd asked me 6 months ago, I'd have said Jason was getting better. He'd been through rough patches, too many to count, but he always landed on his feet. Or at least, near them. A string of half-finished jobs, 3 roommates in 2 years, and an ex who pawned his guitar while he was asleep. That kind of life. But he was family. My only sibling. After Dad passed, I promised Mom I'd look out for him. Said I'd keep him on track. I just didn't realize how far off track things really were. When I called him after the postcard arrived, he didn't answer. Texted the next day. "You good?" Like I had done something strange. I replied, "We need to talk." Now. He didn't call. Instead, he sent a photo. A hotel room. Room service trays. Champagne. The caption, "Living a little before life gets serious." I didn't even know how to process that. The next time I saw him, he walked into my apartment like nothing was wrong. Wearing a souvenir hoodie and smelling like cheap cologne and casino air. I didn't shout. Didn't throw the card in his face. Just asked, "Did you use the loan money to take Rebecca to Vegas?" He blinked, said nothing for a second too long, then nodded, like it was no big deal. "She needed a break," he said, "and I owed her one." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was the only thing keeping me from flipping the table. "You owed her? What about me?" He shrugged. "You're good, man. You've got your life figured out. This was just a little help. I was gonna pay it back. And the job." He looked away. There was no job, was there? Silence. That was the moment I realized something terrifying. It wasn't that he lied. It was that he didn't even think it was a lie. Like what he did existed in a moral gray zone where the ends, a good time, a smile, a woman, justified the debt. Mine. I told him to leave. And he did, without apology, without shame. Just said, "You'll understand someday." But I didn't. Not then. Because what I found out next about him, about her, made everything worse. And it started with a voicemail. From her. Rebecca. I hadn't heard her voice in over a year. Not since the night she called to say she needed space, and then disappeared into it like a magician's trick. 1 minute she was mine, the next, gone. No closure. No explanation. Just air where a life used to be. So when I pressed play on that voicemail, I wasn't ready. "Hey, Thomas. I know I probably shouldn't be calling. But I didn't know how else to say this. I didn't know if he told you." That's how it started. Her voice was low. Hesitant. Like she wasn't sure she deserved to speak it out loud. I didn't go to Vegas thinking it would be like that. Jason said it was a work trip, that we'd be meeting investors, that he wanted me there to help pitch something, because I'm good with people. That's what he said. And I believed him. She paused. You could hear her breathing. Shaky. "I just wanted to get out of town. Clear my head. I didn't even know it was your loan." Another pause. "He told me you'd co-signed a business line for him. Said it was legit." "I'm sorry. I should have asked more questions. I wasn't thinking." Click. That was it. No apology. No, I miss you. Just confusion wrapped in regret. The kind that doesn't beg for forgiveness, just tries to explain why the knife was there in the first place. I sat with that voicemail playing on loop in my head for hours. At first, I didn't know what to believe. Rebecca had always had a way of framing things. She could make a mess sound like a metaphor, turn bad decisions into self-discovery. But something about her voice this time? It felt different, less polished, more real. So I did what I swore I wouldn't. I called her back. She answered on the second ring. She didn't say hello. Just, I figured you'd call. I asked her what happened. All of it. From the day Jason first reached out, to the day they flew out, to the moment she realized it wasn't business. She told me he'd shown her fake emails, screenshots of a startup pitch deck, and messages from supposed investors. Said he needed her help because I didn't support his dreams. That part made me laugh. I didn't support him? I was literally paying interest on his dream. Rebecca said she believed him, at first. He'd told her it was a work trip, that they were meeting investors, and she'd be helping with a pitch. I didn't ask many questions, she admitted. I just wanted to feel useful, like I was helping someone build something real. She didn't have access to his accounts. Said he kept his phone close and paid for everything himself. And on the first day, there wasn't anything suspicious, just generic meals, tourist stops, a few business calls he put on speaker. But on the second night, something slipped. He was in the shower, and his phone lit up. A text notification from his bank. Chase alert. Purchase approved, $218.97. Grand Lux Cafe, Thomas Lane. Her breath caught. She tapped the screen again, saw more alerts. Same name. Different places. Not from a business card. From mine. He used your name, she said. I thought maybe it was some joint venture thing you agreed on. But then I remembered. She trailed off. You wouldn't do that. She confronted him. Asked if he had your permission. He just smiled and said, Thomas can afford it. That's when it clicked. I remembered, years ago, I'd let Jason use my card to order a replacement charger and have it shipped to his place. He was broke at the time, and I figured it was harmless. But clearly, he'd saved the info. Number, expiration, CVV, everything. And worse, I never changed the two-factor backup. He still had access to my old SIM, the one I'd used for banking alerts before switching providers. That's how he slipped past verification. That's how he made it look like I was paying for his weekend in Vegas. That's when she called it off. Booked her own return flight that night. Told him she didn't want to be part of something built on lies again. Booked her own return flight. Told him she didn't want to be part of his scheme, whatever it was. She said he didn't even flinch. Just smiled and said, you'll come around. And maybe the most disturbing part? She almost did. Because Jason could charm a snake out of its skin. Always had been able to. The problem was, once it was vulnerable, he never helped it back in. I thanked her for telling me. She said she didn't expect me to forgive her. That she just didn't want me thinking she was in on it. Then she added something I didn't expect. I still dream about that cabin trip we never took. The one in Vermont. I didn't know what to say. So I didn't say anything. Just ended the call. And sat in silence. But it didn't last long. Because 3 hours later, my phone buzzed again. Jason. No words. Just a photo. Him. Smiling. Standing next to a black Mustang. Captioned, thanks for the ride, big bro. And that's when I realized. He hadn't just taken my credit. He'd stolen my name. The loan wasn't just unpaid. It had been expanded. And this time, he'd forged my signature. I stared at that photo for a long time. Jason, leaning against the car like he'd earned it. Aviators, wind-tossed hair. That smug little tilt of his chin that always meant he thought he'd gotten away with something. Only this time, it wasn't just debt. It was identity theft. I drove straight to the credit union. Didn't bother calling ahead. Just walked in with that photo on my phone and a boiling knot in my chest. The woman at the desk was the same one who'd handled the original paperwork. Mrs. Halpern. Late 50s, kind eyes. The sort of voice that says, bless your heart, when she really means, you poor fool. She greeted me with a smile, one that vanished the moment I said, I think someone used my identity to open another account. She took me into a side room, logged into the system, and paused when she saw the second loan. $24,000. Approved just 3 days after the first. Same name. Same cosigner. Me. But I never signed that second application. Looks like this one was submitted electronically, she said, frowning. Same email domain. But. She stopped. Zoomed in. One character was off. A spoofed address, almost identical to mine. And attached was a digital signature file that looked exactly like the one I'd signed in person. How did this get past verification? I asked. She hesitated, then admitted something I hadn't expected. There was a follow-up call to confirm the identity. The caller gave the right social and had answers to security questions. We assumed it was you. I'm sorry. My stomach twisted. Jason had all of that info. I'd given him access once, years ago, when he lost his wallet. Thought I was helping. Whoever submitted this, I said quietly, wasn't me. She didn't argue. Just slowly reached for the phone and said, let's get fraud on the line. A fraud case was opened. My account was frozen. And by the time I walked out of there, my credit score, the one I'd built carefully for over a decade, had dropped 91 points. In 1 week, Jason had cost me almost $40,000, shredded my financial stability, and wrapped it all in a lie with my name on it. But somehow, I wasn't even surprised. Because here's the truth I'd been avoiding for years. Jason doesn't believe consequences apply to him. He believes in stories, in excuses, in sobbing confessions and big, cinematic turnarounds. But accountability? He's allergic. That night, I went digging. Old messages, emails, receipts, anything that might show a pattern. And buried in my inbox from almost 6 months ago was a forwarded email from a girl named Tessa. Subject line, thought you should see this. It was a screenshot of Jason messaging her on Facebook. He told her he was starting a nonprofit, said he was working with his investment-savvy older brother, said we were building something big and scaling fast. She'd invested $3,000. Never heard from him again. Back then, I thought it was spam. Some scam using my name. But now I knew the scammer was my brother. I texted him. No response. I called. Straight to voicemail. I left one message. You need to come clean, or I will. I didn't hear back. But 2 days later, I got a knock on the door. It wasn't Jason. It was a man in a gray hoodie, mid-40s, worn face, something heavy in his posture. You Thomas? He asked. I nodded. He handed me an envelope. Inside, a note scribbled on hotel stationery. One sentence. He's not who you think he is. Below that, a name I hadn't seen in 15 years. Kyle Brewer, my childhood best friend. A guy Jason hadn't spoken to since we were kids. And that's when the story cracked open. Because Jason didn't just lie to me. He'd been living a second life for months, under my name, with my reputation, and Kyle was the first crack in the mask. I called him immediately. He answered on the second ring. And what he told me, it made the debt look small. Because the money Jason stole wasn't just for Vegas or a Mustang. It was for something darker. Something he thought he could bury. And now, I was the one holding the shovel. Kyle's voice hadn't changed much. Still low and scratchy, like he spent his life yelling over engine noise and bar jukeboxes. We hadn't spoken in years, not since high school, really. But the second I said, Jason, there was a pause on the line. Like he'd been waiting for this call. Thought it'd be you, he said. Eventually, I asked him what he meant. He sighed, said we needed to meet in person. We sat down that evening at a diner off the interstate. The kind of place that serves pancakes 24/7 and keeps the coffee hot but bitter. He slid into the booth, eyes tired. Then he said something I didn't expect. Your brother's in deep. Like, real deep. With the kind of people who don't send overdue notices. They send warnings. I didn't speak. Just let him keep going. Last time I saw him, he had a busted lip and a burner phone. Told me he needed to move some money. Asked if I still had that shell company paperwork from back in the day. The one we never used. I blinked. You two were doing business? Kyle shook his head. No, man. He used me. Said it was for a startup, then wired $18,000 through the shell account. A week later, I get a call from a guy named Mick, saying I owe him interest. That name made my stomach twist. I'd heard it before. Jason had mentioned him once. Casually. Mick's helping me with a short-term flip. Only now I was realizing. Mick wasn't a flipper. He was a fixer. The kind you don't find on LinkedIn. I asked Kyle what happened after that. He hesitated, then reached into his jacket, pulled out a flash drive sealed in a sandwich bag. I was gonna burn this. Thought maybe if I destroyed the proof, it'd stop following me. He slid it across the table. But I couldn't do it. Couldn't risk someone else getting pulled in. Figured if anything ever happened to me, you'd need to know the truth. I stared at it. Holding it felt like touching something radioactive. Because this wasn't about co-signing a bad loan anymore. It was about money laundering, identity fraud, and someone, probably several someones, looking for payback. I went home, plugged in the drive, and what I saw there, Jason wasn't just broke. He was pretending to be me online. Dozens of emails from fake accounts with my name, offering partnerships, consulting, and even cold pitching loans to strangers who thought they were talking to a reliable logistics consultant. Me. He built a shadow business out of my reputation. Used LinkedIn photos, old email headers, even voice memos he'd pulled from that one time I helped him prep for an interview. He wasn't borrowing my name anymore. He was wearing it like a mask. And the worst part? Someone finally realized it was a mask. The threat started the next day. First, a voicemail from a blocked number. "You think you're clever, Thomas? You think debts disappear if you hide behind a screen? Tell Jason he's got until Friday, or you answer for him." Then, a package. No return address. Inside, a photo. My car, parked outside my building, taken the night before. No note, no demand, just a message written in marker across the windshield. "Tell him to pay." I reported it to the police. They took the photo, jotted down notes, said they'd flag it. That was it. So I did the only thing I could. I tracked down Mick. Used a burner app and an old contact from my shipping days, a guy who used to run freight out of Jersey and knew some people. And 2 days later, I got an address. Mick's office. A strip mall storefront with blacked-out windows and a fake name, Capstone Advisory Services. I drove there, waited outside, didn't go in, just watched. After about an hour, someone stepped out. It wasn't Mick. It was Jason. He looked thinner, tense, face pale, shoulders hunched, like someone who hadn't slept in days. But what got me wasn't the fear. It was the pass. Around his neck. A laminated badge. Temporary access. That's when it hit me. He wasn't free. He was working for them. Not as an employee. As collateral. Whatever debt he owed, this was his way of stalling the hammer. He'd sold himself as useful, said he could help recover the money through leads, clients, contacts. I'd heard this script before. Jason the middleman. Jason the talker. Jason buying time with charm and buzzwords. But it wouldn't last. I could see it in his eyes. He was running out of rope. Like he hadn't burned every bridge, including me. I followed him. Not far. Just enough to catch him alone, in an alley behind the lot. He turned when he heard my steps. And for the first time since this whole mess started, he looked scared. "Thomas," he said, like my name was a curse. I didn't yell. Didn't punch him. I just held up my phone, showing the photo of my car. "You did this," I said. "And now they're coming after me." He didn't deny it. Didn't apologize. He just said 4 words I'll never forget. "I told them my brother would never turn on me," he muttered. "Said you were loyal. Said you'd bend before you'd break." Then he looked me in the eye. "They said you'd fold. They said you'd fold." That's when I knew. He hadn't just gambled with my credit. He bet against my spine. And now? Now it was time to show him just how wrong he was. I didn't hit him. Didn't scream. Didn't shove. But I stepped close enough for him to flinch. Close enough for him to realize whatever power he thought he had? It was gone now. "Tell me everything," I said. "All of it. Or I walk straight back to Capstone and let Mick know where you're hiding." Jason's jaw tensed. "I didn't think they'd go after you," he said quietly. "That's your problem, Jason. You never think far enough past yourself." He looked down, rubbed his face with both hands like he was trying to wake up from a nightmare he built. "I owed Mick money," he said. 10 grand from last year. I got an over-my-head poker, mostly. I thought I could flip it fast. But then he doubled the interest. And I didn't have a way out. "So you used my name." He nodded. "At first, it was just the credit. The cosign. I figured you'd keep it clean. And I'd pay it off before you noticed. But you didn't." "I couldn't," he said, almost whispering. Then he started pushing. Said if I didn't come up with something real, something big, I was done. "So I started using your name. Building a fake consulting gig. Small amounts at first. Then a few people bid. Money came in. And I thought, maybe I can make it work." "You thought you could scam your way out of a debt," I said. He nodded again. "I didn't know they'd threaten you," he repeated, as if that made it better. "I swear, that wasn't part of the plan. There shouldn't have been a plan, Jason." He leaned against the wall, sliding down until he was sitting on the ground, knees up like a kid who got caught shoplifting. "They said if I don't pay by Friday, they're coming for blood." I crouched down. "Do they know who I really am? That it wasn't me behind those deals?" He hesitated. "I don't think so. Not yet. They think you ghosted them." I stood. "You're going to fix that." He looked up. "How?" "You're going to come clean. You're going to record a confession, full detail. The identity theft, the fraud, every dollar you moved through my name. And then, we're going to hand it to the cops." He went pale. "They'll kill me." I didn't blink. "They might. Or you might let them take me down instead." He stared at me. And for once, maybe the first time since we were kids, I saw the fear register. Real fear. Not fear of getting caught. Fear of what he'd become. He stood up slowly. He didn't answer right away. Just stared at the ground like it might open and swallow him. Then finally, he whispered, "I'll do it." Pause. "But, can you give me 2 days?" "For what?" He looked away. to try and fix one last thing. I don't want that video to be the only truth left behind. For what? He looked away. To get the money. I've got one move left. I almost walked away right then. Almost let him take the fall alone. But something, maybe the ghost of a promise I made to Dad, maybe just plain stupidity, made me nod. 2 days. Then we go to the cops. The next 48 hours were slow motion hell. I changed all my passwords, froze my credit, filed an FTC identity theft report, and hired a lawyer. I didn't sleep much. Kept expecting my phone to light up with more threats. Or worse, silence. But Jason didn't vanish. He called the next night. Said he had it. Said he was coming by to talk, face to face. I waited. Then I heard the knock. But it wasn't him. It was Rebecca. She looked tired. Hair pulled back. Same coat she wore when she left the first time. He told me to give you this, she said, holding out an envelope. Inside, $11,000 in cash. And a flash drive. He said he couldn't face you, she added. Said you'd never believe it was real unless it came from me. I stared at her. Why are you still helping him? She looked away. Took a breath. Because he's scared, she said. And because, maybe I am too. I didn't speak. I let myself be pulled into something awful. And part of me kept helping because if I walked away completely, I'd have to admit how blind I was. She met my eyes. I'm not doing this for him anymore. I'm doing it because I want one decent thing to come out of all of this. She handed me the envelope. Maybe this is it. I opened the drive that night. Watched the whole confession. Jason, sitting in what looked like a motel room, talking straight into the webcam. No drama. No excuses. Just a man cataloging his sins. I used my brother's name, he said. I stole his credit, forged his signature, and built a fake consulting company in his image. Everything they think he did was me. I'm not proud, but I won't let him take the fall. I can't. It was the first time in years he sounded like the brother I used to know. The next morning, I walked into the police station, handed them the drive, filed the statement, and that was it. No movie ending. No dramatic arrest. Just a slow, heavy step toward truth. Jason turned himself in later that day, but not before he sent me one last text. Tell Mom I'm sorry. And thank you for not folding. I didn't reply. Some things don't need answers. Some debts aren't money. They sentenced him to 18 months. Suspended, with 5 years of probation, mandatory restitution, and court-ordered therapy. He took a plea deal. Fraud. Identity theft. Financial impersonation. The list was long, and in any other case, it could have meant prison. But the prosecutor weighed the confession, the cooperation, the fact that I, the primary victim, provided a sworn statement requesting leniency, if only to keep Mom from ever having to hear her youngest son was behind bars. The judge called it a tragic betrayal of familial trust, said she was showing mercy not out of naivety, but because justice sometimes looks like accountability, not destruction. I sat in the back row and didn't say a word. Not to Jason. Not to anyone. Just waited for it to be over. Not to Jason. Not to anyone. The courtroom was half empty. Rebecca wasn't there. Mom didn't come either. Didn't even know. I never told her. Because some griefs, you don't repeat. She'd already buried a husband. Already mourned the dream of 2 sons who'd always look out for each other. I wasn't going to make her bury that too. Some silences aren't cowardice. They're mercy. She'd buried a husband. Buried the dream of 2 close-knit sons. I wasn't going to bury her peace, too. Jason looked for me once during the sentencing. I scanning the room like he hoped I wasn't there, but feared I wouldn't be. When they read the terms aloud, he nodded. Didn't argue. Didn't cry. Just accepted it. And maybe that's what hit me hardest. Not the sentence. Not the money I'd never get back. But the way my brother, my little brother, sat there like he finally understood what it meant to lose the right to be believed. Life after that was slow and quiet. I got my credit back, mostly. Took months. Letters, forms, affidavits. Legal costs that still sting when I see the invoices. But the damage to my name, that took longer. Friends stopped asking about Jason. Not out of disinterest, but out of discomfort. People didn't know whether to ask if we were okay, or if we ever had been. The answer? Yes. And no. Because the thing about growing up with someone like Jason is this. You get used to loving them with conditions. With lines in your head you swore you'd never cross, until you do. And then you redraw them. Again, and again. Until one day, there's no line left, just a quiet kind of grief for a brother who's still alive, but no longer someone you recognize. Rebecca moved out of state a few months after the trial. She sent me a message before she left. No drama. No expectations. Just, I'm sorry. For not seeing it sooner. For all of it. You didn't deserve to be collateral. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't forgive her, But because sometimes closure isn't a conversation, it's a choice not to open old doors. Jason called me once, 6 months into probation, left a voicemail, said he was going to meetings, said he was working at a construction site under a guy who knew his whole story and gave him a chance anyway. Said he'd paid back $3,000 so far and planned to pay the rest slowly, but surely. He didn't ask for anything, didn't even ask me to call him back. Just said one thing at the end. I know I broke something in you. I don't expect to fix it. I just hope someday you'll believe I tried. I sat with that message for a long time. Didn't delete it. Didn't reply. Just let it exist. A piece of the truth. Nothing more. Nothing less. You'd think a story like this would end with forgiveness or rage. But for me, it ended with peace. A strange, steady peace that comes when you finally stop expecting someone to become who they promised and accept who they really are. Jason was my brother. Still is. But I stopped folding for him. Stopped catching him before he fell. And when I did, he finally hit the ground hard enough to hear it. I won't pretend it fixed everything, but it did something. And maybe that's enough. Because love isn't always about holding on. Sometimes, it's about letting someone go until they're ready to hold themselves. And when they finally do, you can still care from a distance. Still wish them well. Still pray they find their way, just not through your door. Not again. Not this time. Because some debts? They get paid with space. With silence. And with the strength to say, I won't carry this for you anymore. And mean it.